So right now we have Casey, who's a team leader of the drinking water quality team in the drinking water standards section. He has a BS in biology from the University of Southern Mississippi. Casey has worked for the TCEQ since 2014 as a natural resource specialist and is now the team leader. During this time, he has been a compliance officer for the inorganics and revised total coliform programs, as well as the project manager for the drinking water sample collection contract. His duties now include managing the drinking water quality team while they make their compliance determinations and provide high-quality customer service. Please welcome Casey Stinson.
See how tall this microphone can get. Thank you all for joining me late on this last day of the conference. I very much appreciate y'all taking the time to attend. Try my best to make this worth y'all's while. So I'm going to be talking about, and again, like everyone else who's been in this room, I'll be struggling with the double clicks, so just bear with me in case I forget to bring a slide forward. So I'll be talking to y'all about the disinfectant residual monitoring. Primarily, I'm going to be focused on chlorine and chloramines, but I will touch on some of the other alternative disinfectants. All right, so why do we require the monitoring of disinfectants in your distribution system? So you need to track those disinfectant levels because that is your really first line of defense to maintaining a healthy population in your public water system. So you want to watch for either end of the spectrum with this. You want to ensure that you have a high enough level to discourage microbial growth in your distribution system. And you also want to make sure that you're not overdosing so you don't get over those health effects levels and waste money. Overdosing costs you money and it'll only end up with you getting a violation. So, like I said, quick review of the agenda. We'll be talking about some of the common disinfectants, how to manage your monitoring for those, how to facilitate the reporting of those, some of the frequent issues we see, and then just the briefest of touches on the alternative disinfectants. All right, one small change to this. So these are a couple of the regulatory guidances that y'all can use to help with your reporting of your disinfectants. If your surface water system, you'll see the RG211 there. There's actually been a new revision that has just come out. So it actually came out last week. I wasn't able to update this slide. So you're going to be looking for the one with the revision date of June of 2022. This is still accurate for the RG407 guidance, though. All right, so the lion's share of our systems are utilizing one of either free chlorine or total chlorine or chloramines. So it's chloramines measured as total chlorine. There are a few systems that are utilizing alternative disinfectants primarily to supplement either their free chlorine or chloramines, and those include chlorine dioxide, ozone, and UV. Each of those have their own monitoring required associated with those. So let's talk about these. Since these are the two most common, I'm going to spend the most amount of time on these. What are the pros and cons? So a lot of systems, a lot of groundwater systems utilize free chlorine. It works well for a lot of systems because it is a strong oxidizer. And if you have a small distribution system, you don't have to worry too much about water age and difficulties maintaining a residual. Like I said, it is the stronger of the two as far as oxidizing ability goes. One of the potential risks is because it is a strong oxidizer, it interacts with anything in your water pretty quickly and is prone to forming DBPs. Those can be related to organic matter in your water or salts in your source water, creating brominated species of total trihalomethanes. For chloramines, you don't get as strong of an oxidation factor with it, but is significantly more persistent in your distribution system. So if you have a large distribution system or low water use, maybe something you want to consider. It's much easier to maintain if you're building good chloramines. It's much easier to maintain a residual for a long time in your distribution. Now, since this is a less aggressive oxidant, you don't have as much formation of DBPs. The other thing is, when you're creating chloramines, your free chlorine is interacting very quickly with your ammonia, so it doesn't give it a chance to interact with the other things in your water and form the DBPs that we just talked about. One of the potential risks, if you're utilizing chloramines, you are adding ammonia to your distribution system, and the bacteria in your distribution system will eat that ammonia and it can lead to nitrification. All right, so this is the rule this is all based on. Y'all can read this for yourselves, but the disinfectant requirements here in Texas are a huge asset. They do a great job of protecting public health where we have such high temperatures and large cities with giant distribution systems. So maintaining these disinfectant residuals in your distribution system really do a great job of protecting your public health. In addition to the minimum requirements, which I'll have to hit those triggers for us to remain in compliance with our requirements, you also get some fringe benefits from maintaining a sufficient disinfectant residual. A couple of those that I'm going to touch on is, y'all are familiar with the colloquially termed brain-eating amoeba, the Naegleria fowleri, as well as Legionella. We've seen occurrences of both of those here in Texas, and in both instances is related to low disinfectant residuals. A healthy residual will do a good job of controlling both of those. And like I said, both chlorine and chloramines, as long as you're maintaining them above that minimum residual, will give you added protection against some of these emerging contaminants. All right, like I said, you're aiming for that sweet spot between the required minimum and the limited maximum. So what you want to do is make sure you know what residual you're running in your distribution system. If you're a purchase system, make sure you know 100% what you're getting from the upstream system. So if you're running free chlorine, because it is a stronger oxidizer, the minimum allowed level is a little bit lower. So you get that 0.2, but you really don't want to be running at a 0.2. If you're running at a 0.2, that's cutting it a little too close. You really do want to maintain a better residual than that, but staying above that 0.2 will give you all that microbial protection. For total chlorine, the chloramine, it's a little less aggressive, so you need more of it to ensure protection. So you're aiming for that 0.5 milligrams per liter minimum. Also have to be concerned about the maximum. Like I said, in addition to it being a waste of money, there are health effects related to it. So you want to make sure your running annual average stays below a 4 as you're reporting it to us. And that is for either chloramines or free chlorine. A single sample above won't get you in trouble with us, but it may get you a phone call from us. So we'll make you aware that the levels are running a little high. You may want to adjust your dosing. For this disinfectant monitoring, for surface water and GUI systems, there is required monitoring for the disinfectant residual at the entry point in addition to the distribution system. However, I would highly recommend, regardless of source, that you do entry point samples, because whenever you do distribution monitoring for your residuals, that's telling you the end of the story. If you're not measuring your disinfectant leaving the plant, you don't know where you're starting. You don't know how much usage you have in your distribution system. So even if it's not required, I highly recommend you know what's leaving your plant at what levels, even if you're not reporting that to us. So if you're one of those groundwater systems, that's how you keep a pulse check on, is your dosing dialed in? Because there are things that can happen out in your distribution system. Say your dosing is consistent. You're coming out of your plant at a 1.2. You are accustomed to the furthest house on your line coming in at a 0.6. All of a sudden, you know that you're still running that 1.2 out of your plant, and you get a 0.0 in the far reach of your distribution. Probably not a dosage issue. There's something going on in your distribution system. cross connection, broken line, nitrification. So not going to harp on it too much, but even if it's not required, I would definitely do it. It will benefit you to know what's going on in your system. And of course, the caveat, the entry point samples aren't going to be used to replace the distribution. This is just additional recommended monitoring for those groundwater systems. All right, so what's the frequency? For the smaller systems, groundwater or purchased water that are less than 750 and less than 250 connections, it's going to be once every 7 days that you're monitoring your distribution system residuals. If either you have greater than 750 people or more than 250 connections, you're going to be doing this daily. And you want to grab one of these every time you're collecting a back T sample anyway. This is more in there just as an infographic. I'm not going to go over it line by line. But you want to make sure that you have multiple sites in your distribution identified to measure your residual. Distribution systems themselves are living organisms. They are not going to give you consistent disinfectant residuals across the entirety of the system. So you want to make sure that you have representative sites chosen and that you're cycling through those as you're monitoring. Because if you're sampling on the same street at the same time every month, you may have no idea what's going on the other side of your system until you get a customer complaint. And as I've already previewed, make sure that you're choosing representative sites. This is a requirement for us, but this, like a lot of the stuff I'm covering here, it helps y'all. Y'all know your system. Y'all know where is representative of the different neighborhoods. Y'all know where the pipes run underground. We don't necessarily. So y'all be mindful when you're choosing these. It serves you to choose sites that tell you the story of what's going on in your distribution. If you know there's one neighborhood that has low water usage and you know you need to do some flushing over there, make sure you're keeping a pulse check on it. Make sure your flushing is sufficient. And make sure you're rotating through all of those sites. And you can double up on your coliform sites also as residuals. Residual sites, that is. So, like I was just saying, you want to choose something that's representative. Let's call this a lowercase letter H. If all of your sample sites were on the left side of that H, that's not going to tell you anything about what's going on in the other half of your system. So if you see, these sites are spread throughout. Lower water age, higher water age on this side. Go over to the other side. You have a lower water age and a higher water age option there as well. So there are approved methods for analyzing chlorine and chloramines. I know most of y'all probably use a hot colorimeter, but these are the minimum requirements. As far as reporting goes, if you are that surface water system or groundwater under the influence system, you're going to be submitting this data to us in a SWMOR on a monthly basis. For groundwater and purchase systems, you're going to be submitting it to us on a DLQOR, Disinfectant Level Quarterly Operating Report. And that is due by the 10th of the month following the end of the monitoring period. So first quarter, January, February, March, by April 10th, that DLQOR is due. Not going to do a ton of call and response here, but just out of curiosity, how many of y'all submit DLQORs? Raise of hands. Perfect. All right, one last follow-up. How many of y'all currently submit utilizing E2 steers? Okay. If any of y'all have utilized steers in the past and you've run into issues with the website crashing, it was a known issue to us and it's something we have worked very hard to get fixed. I feel confident in saying right now we have significantly more stable website than we did 6 months ago. So if you tried steers in the past and you backed away from it because you were running into issues, I recommend going back to give it a try. If you've never submitted electronically, I highly recommend it. Things don't get lost in the mail. It doesn't cost you anything. It retains an electronic record that you can pull up. And if you're getting ready to set up your steers account, I have a couple of staff members who will be happy to help you. So reach out to me. My email will be at the end of this and I will put y'all in touch with my staff. They will help y'all set up steers need to. It was something I wasn't pushing very hard because we were having the crashes and the headaches along with it. We've made some changes and it is vastly improved. So for those of y'all that are using steers, or plan on using it in the future, one of the fixes that we actually put in place is we were previously retaining all submitted data from all time for all systems. We have now cut it down. We are maintaining 3 years of reports in E2. Because that is the rule requirement, we wanted to make sure y'all had 3 years of reports at y'all's disposal. Now, once something ages past 3 years, it is currently being removed from steers. But at any point, if you're utilizing this tool, you can go in, you can save a copy of that DLQOR for yourself, and you can maintain your own records. But on E2 itself, it's going to keep 3 years, and that was the fix. We found there's just too much data in there. The website had lost stability. So since we've cut it down, 3 years will meet y'all's requirements, and it'll also fix our website. So there is, of course, still a paper option. There's just the logistical challenges you face around that, and monetary. Steers is free, and if y'all ever need any help, like I said, myself and my staff, happy to help. Here's a sneak peek. Most of y'all know what this looks like. This is your DLQOR. This is a copy that you can find online, fill out, sign, and submit to us. All right, how to fill this out. By and large, we receive a ton of these, right, every quarter. But by and large, there are a few mistakes that people made, and I'll touch on those in a bit. But for each of these, just make sure you know what each field is asking you for. If for some reason you fill this out with some data that doesn't make logical sense, my staff may reach out to you for corrections or revisions. You're going to be doing these for each of the month and the quarter. You're going to fill out the average disinfectant residuals, number of residuals you collected. Make sure that matches your requirements. If it's daily, you should have daily results. So however many days in the month there are, you better have at least that many readings. Number of residuals below the minimum, and again, that's dependent on what type of disinfectant you're running. And then number of residuals at 0. So that's the no residual. If you get a 0.0, that's where you report that. All right. So at the bottom of the form, there is where you actually fill out the quarterly summary. So you're going to take each of those 3 previous monthly averages, and you're going to use those to calculate this quarterly summary. That's what we're going to utilize for determining compliance. One other thing leads to us having to make a lot of phone calls. Make sure lowest disinfectant residual of the quarter, whatever you list here should show up in one of those 3 months that you listed on the DLQOR. If we don't see it, we'll reach out to you and see why there's a discrepancy. Same with the highest. All right, again, we're back to here. Cannot stress enough, try the electronic submittal if you haven't yet. It's a little bit of a hurdle to get over on the startup, but we'll be happy to walk you through it. We are still accepting paper forms submitted by mail. If you do submit it by mail, submit it early. If you do certified mail, hang on to that receipt. Things get lost in the mail. So you may hear from us saying, we didn't receive it, you are on the hook for a violation. If you show us that mail receipt, we'll waive the violation, but we'll still need to get a copy of that DLQOR. As of right now, we are not accepting the official copies through fax or email unless certain situations arise and we specifically request it that way. Have a link here for the Steers E2 user guide. Again, my staff very quick to hand this out, so we'll be happy to provide this to y'all electronically and sign up for the free account. And here's the home page that you'll land on whenever you do get to Steers. Earlier today, hopefully some of y'all were able to make it. A couple of my staff members put on a workshop showing how to set up your account, and they walked step by step through how to create the account, submit a report, find the reports after you've submitted them so you can keep them for your records. And here's what it looks like on Steers. You'll notice very similar. We're capturing the same data. You're just filling this one in electronically, validating the data, and then hitting submit to us. So here's some of the frequent issues that my staff and administrative staff often have to reach out to systems to correct. Double check your PWS ID. I know some of y'all operate multiple systems. Make sure you've got it straight, which system is which number. Type of disinfectant not reported. That's really important too, because otherwise we don't know if that minimum level was met or not. Missing signature, it's not going to count as an official copy till it's signed off on by an operator. Yeah, and like I said, you just want to make sure that the calculations make some logical sense. If your quarterly average is higher than any of your monthly averages were, that math isn't mathing. So, like I said, very briefly, I'm going to touch on a few of the alternative disinfectants. They have their own reporting requirements. They have their own regulated levels. There's not a ton of systems that are utilizing these right now, but I did at least want to touch on them. So for systems that utilize chlorine dioxide, that is producing chloride as a disinfectant residual, and there is an RG out there to help y'all with how to monitor, how to report, and all of that. Few systems do utilize ozone. They're required to monitor for bromate, as it is a disinfection byproduct of utilizing ozone. And there's the associated RG for that. Record keeping. Make sure that y'all are maintaining your records on site. You don't want to have lost your January report when it comes time to submit your first quarter data. So just make sure that y'all are hanging on to that. Operators must keep the records of the residuals, so we may ask to see all of those measurements. If the calculations aren't quite adding up for us, we may want to check those and just make sure everything's calculated correctly. And make sure you're submitting a lab approval form to us to keep it updated with whatever instrumentation y'all are using to measure those residuals. With a lot of this, I like to tell you, I mean, there are requirements of what y'all have to submit to us because that's the regulatory requirement. But there's a lot of benefits to maintaining good data on your end. It allows you to stay on top of it. You're not going to have to wait for a customer call. You're going to know preemptively that there's something going on in a certain area of your system. You can address it before it gets on your customer's radar and well before it gets on our radar. It will also protect public health. Like I said, healthy residuals protect against a myriad of microbial challenges. Be that Legionella, be that Naegleria fowleri, or coliforms of any stripe. And, you know, for some of y'all, very importantly, it'll minimize the violations. If y'all are staying on top of that, in almost all cases, you're gonna have a chance to fix your issue before y'all are reporting this information to us. All right, here's our contact information. That is the main line number. You can reach my staff that handles DLQOR compliance at this DBP email box. You can also reach out to the Steers help desk if you've lost your password or need some help with your account. If you all need any additional assistance, I'll make the plug everyone else has through this whole conference. We do have FMT assistance. It is free. It is no charge to you all. They can help with a number of different issues. And you can either reach out to them directly or contact myself or one of my fellow compliance officers, and we will be happy to make the referral for you. All right, so we moved along through that, but here's my contact information. I'm team lead for drinking water quality team. Within my team, we have the surface water treatment rule, the disinfectant residuals, the disinfection byproducts program, and the inorganics and radionuclides. So if y'all have any questions associated to any of those things, feel free to reach out to me. Cool. Thank y'all very much. That was all I had. Thanks, y'all.